to see you. Today we're going to be doing one of my favorite little starter projects, and that's called the ruler project. And that's a project where you make a ruler out of a piece of wood, you sand it, you mark it, put in the notations for the size of the ruler, and then you have a nice little ruler you can use in the shop.
These are the items you're going to be getting or have received for your first ruler project. You should have a paper that has a full ruler, 12-inch ruler on it. You should also have a ruler blank. This is about 12.5 inches long, a little extra for purposes of drilling a hole if you wish. A sanding block for wrapping around the sandpaper, which I'll show you, and 2 grits of sandpaper. A coarse 120 to begin with, and then the more fine, darker brown 220 for the finish work. The first thing we need to do is figure out which is the more coarse or the rough sandpaper. This one, some of the papers, when the way they're cut, it'll show the grit. And this is a 120 grit sandpaper. This one, you can kind of see the number, but it said 220 originally. So basically, for our purposes, the lighter one is the one you want to start with, the 120, and then we'll finish it up with the 220. Might want to go outside, find a place where the dust won't be a problem that with your sanding. I'm in the shop, so I'm happy to sand inside here, but if you're in the kitchen or the living room, you may want to check with your parents first to make sure it's okay. So find a place where you can sand that's not going to be bothersome. Then for the sanding block, there are a couple ways you can do it. One way is you can go a long way and kind of bend the sandpaper over this little sanding block like so, or you can go this direction too. It's up to you. I'm going to give it a try this way to see how it goes the long ways. So this block will give me a nice flat sanding surface with which to sand. When we start sanding, we want to sand with the grain. This is called the grain that you can see these lines in the wood, and when the tree was growing, it was growing like this vertically, and that's where the grains come into play. But you want to sand always with the grain. You don't want to go in this direction because you'll generate a bunch of scratches. So what you'll do, go back and forth. Now that we have the ruler section sanded nicely, we're ready to start with the lines. Now, please get a pencil that's very sharp. I don't know if you can see in the video, but this is a sharp pencil. Nice, it's got a nice point. If your family has a tri-square or a mini framing square or a speed square, please, I recommend you use one of these. If not, you can use this as a little square. It's not the best, but it can help and get you a nice looking ruler. The way the square would work, we'd go ahead and we would mark carefully the whole numbers first of all. So we'd lay the paper down, making sure that we have the beginning right there precisely with the beginning. And we'll go ahead and make sure the paper ruler is parallel, and we'll make a dot, a little dot, at every whole inch section. Okay? So every place where there's a whole inch, take your time. This is kind of critical because it's the basis on which you'll lay out all your other fractions. And if you're off on your wholes inches, the fraction inches will be not so great. I don't know if you can see, but we have a dot now for every whole inch. Now, if you have a tri-square, you can go line up the tri-square with that dot and make an inch hole mark at each dot 1 inch long. So it's let's sort of highlight this one here. So each line that represents a hole is indeed 1 inch long, like so. I'm going to speed up the rest for this part here. So now we have our whole inches. Each inch is 1 inch long down from this edge down. Starting from the left, we've numbered 1, 2, all the way through 12. So we have our holes. We have a basic inch, but it's only good for whole inches, and now we need to get it into the halves. So we're going to mark those carefully using this piece of paper to mark the halves. Once again, we'll line it up very carefully. I'm going to rotate it so it's a little easier for you to see. I've lined it up, and now at the halfway mark, I'm going to make a little dot like so. Get these marked. The smaller the mark, sometimes the better. Otherwise, you can end up with a big, looks like a kind of a beach ball on your line. So if you make it small, the half-inch mark will be kind of covered up by the line that you draw. Alright, there we have, you can see, but we have our little half-inch marks. Now to make the lines, we can, once again, this is the best way. This is the half-inch mark. So since these are half-inch lines, we're going to make the lines half-inch long. So every half-inch point will have a half-inch line like this. And this is how you would do it if you have a tri-square, or if you have a square like this one. You'd also, again, make sure this edge is parallel with the top of your ruler. Draw down half an inch like so. And have our lines, half-inch long. If you don't have the squares, you can use the piece of block of wood, line it up, mark. You can see, but I've marked a half-inch. This part right here will line up with the top of my ruler, and I've created a little basic but effective mini square. So once again, I'm making sure that that is square. So you can see, but when I'm doing this, I'm trying to make sure that these edges are square or parallel. So line it up like so, and make our lines like so. And the last one, there we go. There we go. Now we have our holes, we have our halves. Let's put in the quarters. And we have marked the 1/4 inch lines. Using our square, we can line it up to these sections that represent our quarters. These lines will all be 1/4 inch long. Now, clearly, to my naked eye, I can see that one doesn't look right. So I'm going to double check this one here. And if you don't have a tri-square, we can make this little block. We can start from the beginning. We can make a 1/4 inch mark. And we can Alright, now we have our wholes, halves, and quarters. We're almost done with the project. The last thing we need to put in are the eighths. So let's go put in the eighths. Again, we start at, let's see if I can zoom in a little here for you. Whoa. Make sure I'm focused. Alright, and I will put a tiny little dot here representing the eighths. Just a little tiny dot. If I go to if I make these too dark, they will appear in a strange way for the finished ruler. Alright, one thing I also have noticed that my pencil's gotten a bit dull, so I'm going to sharpen it. That's better. Now my pencil is quite a bit sharper. So I'm ready for the final 1/8 inch line markings. And if you can see, these lines are only going to be 1/8 inch long. So on this tri-square, the 1/8 inch is only a 1/8 of an inch, or one line. All right. I'm going to show what it's like to, if I don't have that, how I would do it. I would get my paper, my sanding block, and I would mark 1/8, which is 2 lines on this one. Get it marked. And now, very carefully, Okay, now we have all our lines. We have our whole in numbers. We have our halves, we have our quarters, and we have the eighths. Now, for this particular project, I don't recommend you go to 16ths. As you can tell, it's kind of tricky. It's deceptively tricky, and you've got to be pretty darn accurate to get these lines to look halfway good. You can even tell with my lines, some of the lines are better than others. I do like these. I do like the lines in the front part right here. I think I did a pretty good job there. Some of them are, they could be a little better. Maybe I could erase a few of the rough ones and do them a little neater. But basically, this is the project. When it's done, this is what it could look like. If you happen to have a drill, it's kind of nice to drill a little hole in here. You can put a string through it, use it to hang in your tool area. You can also, if you have some clear spray, you can take some of this clear mat and just give it a light coating. That coating will protect it from smudges, make it last a lot longer, and brings out the grain of the wood. Anyway, that's the project. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's a fun little project, and if you've done a nice job, you've ended up with a great little ruler you can use around the home, give to your grandparents, keep at home, give to a neighbor, or keep in your toolbox, and you'll have your very own homemade ruler. All right, thanks for listening.